The NHL just changed forever as the continued rise of the NHL cap space, with star players getting massive extensions and huge names set to hit free agency in 2 years. This changes everything with the entire outlook of the NHL, as NHL general managers and fans have to get used to a completely changed system. We're going to break down all these contracts being signed throughout the NHL, the inflation of the salary cap, and how everything is about to change for every team, and so much more later on this episode. Before we get into that, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone watching. If you're part of the 75.2% watching this and you want to stay up to date on everything to do from the NHL, make sure to go down and hit that free subscribe button. It means the world, and in return, we'll give you daily updates from all around the league. But with that, Darius, let's just dive straight into where we're seeing a complete change in the structure of how the NHL is going to be operated. We're seeing massive extensions signed. We know the cap is going up 95, 104, 113 million by 27-28. The cap is going to continue jumping year after year by nearly 10 million. We're seeing it already come out with Jackson LaCombe sign his extension at a very young age, 8 years at 9 million AAV for a player that comes in at 24 years old, 148 games. Before we really dive into some of these new contracts coming through, even more contracts currently signed, what is your thoughts on this new structure and the new way teams are going to be looking at this new league?
Yeah, the NHL has seemingly changed overnight this summer with the news of the new CBA and obviously the salary cap going up almost $10 million, like you said, roughly $10 million every summer now at this point, which leaves a lot of room for teams to do some crazy things. And obviously we've seen that through the summer already, a lot of pretty insane contracts that you probably would have never seen before. And what a $9 or $10 million player is now is changing very rapidly, right? Like you just mentioned, Jackson LaCombe out there in Anaheim just signed for $9 million. That would not have happened 2 years ago, but they're banking on the future and the salary cap rising, and that contract will actually age beautifully, which it probably will if all things go to plan. So the NHL has actually changed quite a bit, and we can't think of players as, like I just mentioned, which is funny enough, $8 or $9 million players, or what's a $11 million player, because there have been tiers. McDavid was a $12 million player, Matthews, Panarin, all $11 million players, right? There were tiers, but now you're going to start thinking of players as percentages of the cap. That's what the agents and their players are going to be aiming for in terms of, especially long-term contracts. What are the percentages of the cap that my player is taking up? So we got to start looking at, the NHL and the salary cap structure like that, because that's what the agents and players are doing heading forward. So that's going to be very interesting. And the biggest thing is a lot of, the free agent class next year is obviously insane. Kirill Kaprizov, we're going to touch on him as well. He's off the board now, but absolutely insane contract, that's for sure. But one thing you're also going to start seeing, which I think is interesting, and people, are going to start to see this over the course of the next, I think, 365 days at this point, is shorter term deals for superstars. I think they're going to go the way of the NBA. We already saw with the new CBA, 8-year deals are no longer a thing. If you're under contract with that team, you're going to be able to sign for a max of 7 years. And then if you're a UFA, it's going to be 6 years, right? We've already seen that kind of take place. This will be the last year that happens, that you can sign an 8-year contract. So that's going to be very interesting, either a 6 or 7 year contract in that case. So we'll see what happens, beyond next summer in terms of superstars and what they're signing for. But we already saw Austin Matthews and his agent start to go that route, right? We've seen 3-4 year deals. I think superstars are going to start to sign those types of deals instead of the max contracts, like a 6 or 7 year deal. It's going to be 3 or 4 years, and they're going to maximize their, earnings and cash in again before, instead of players having 3 contracts over the course of their career, they're going to have way more than that at this point. They want to cash in, which, makes sense. We see it in other leagues.
And I think the big thing is we're seeing, like you said, a lot of young guys signing these long deals. We see Jackson LaCombe, a great defender. I'm not taking anything away. But with his cap hit coming in, you can see year after year what it's going to look like compared to if it was signed going into the season before the cap inflation. These guys, and like you said, we need to look at percentages. You see Luke Hughes coming in on a 9-year, 7-year deal, or 9 million, 7-year deal. And the big thing is, even guys that are third line defensemen in Mikkola, and listen, once again, a great defender signing an 8-year deal at 5 million per season, which is actually less Then you see like a guy like Forsling that is on the Panthers as well. But the big thing is we're going to see these star players take massive deals. Now we've seen Kirill Kaprizov sign an 8-year deal. This is not going to be a case, like you said, with a lot of star players. Connor McDavid might take a 2-year deal, maximize the value. Once you get into a bigger cap world, you sign for more money. You continuously do this as a star player is going to continuously get better. But looking at Kirill, I think this is where everything really changes the landscape for the NHL. You have Kirill coming down on the $17 million year. This is a contract that a lot of people, including Wild fans, are looking at and saying, this is wild, no pun intended. But the fact players are getting this much is going to completely shake up teams. But I think the biggest thing is you're going to see those young guys get those big deals on a longer term. They come into their second term, sign these big ones like Kaprizov. But the biggest issue with this is when you're getting farther in, you're going to start having multiple players making 8, 9, 10, 11 million on your team. We see the Toronto Maple Leafs do that to a sense before the core four got broken up. But I do see the world where, like we see here from Elliot Friedman, we're going to see even more players, Connor McDavid and a guy like Cale Makar, who are both going to hit free agency next season and the respected season after. Darius, do you think we're going to get to the point where every single team has one of these guys locked up on a 15, 16, 17, even $20 million deal?
Definitely. And I think that, Connor McDavid, for example, was waiting, I think, for somebody else to set the market. And he's in no rush to sign. He wants the Edmonton Oilers to know that the most important thing to him is winning and winning a Stanley Cup. And obviously, he's going to be compensated very fairly to win if he stays in Edmonton. But Elliot Friedman also reported that Connor McDavid might take only $16 million to stay in Edmonton. But that was right before Kirill Kaprizov signed for 17. So that could change things because we were all assuming that Kirill was going to sign for 15 or $16 million. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. We needed somebody to reset the market. We knew that somebody was going to reset the market, and Kirill Kaprizov has done that with his contract. Absolutely insane with 17 million. But like you said, could get up to like 20. If Kirill Kaprizov is a $17 million player, no disrespect to Kirill Kaprizov, Connor McDavid is a $20 or $21 million player then, right? Like he's that much better. So we're going to start to see that. McDavid, whether he stays or he leaves, he's going to be compensated very well for that. I think it's interesting too that, they were talking about him taking a little bit less to stay with the Oilers so they can be competitive because obviously Draisaitl makes a lot of money too. He might do that even if he leaves. If he goes to Toronto, Tavares took a hometown discount as well when he first came over. So maybe he does that as well. So I think that's very interesting. Maybe Kirill just said, if I'm going to stay in Minnesota, I want to be the highest paid player in the NHL. And they gave it to him, right? Because he does have that star power. But nonetheless, I still think things are going to get very interesting as the years go on here. A lot of superstars are going to be making a lot more money. Things are going to be interesting in terms of a dynamic where, Draisaitl, for example, makes 14. McDavid might be making 18 or whatever it ends up being. That's a lot of money locked up in two players, even if the cap is going up. So pretty interesting stuff there and how everything is unfolding. But there's a lot of really good free agents next year, and there's a lot of extra cap space around the league. So you got Panarin, you got McDavid still unsigned, right? There's Adrian Kempe is unsigned. There's a lot of guys heading into next year. I believe Alex Tuck even is unsigned, which is a pretty big name. Sounds like he wants to stay in Buffalo, but he's going to command a lot of money, right? He's making almost nothing for what he, can bring to a lineup. He's going to make way more than I think people are expecting. So it's going to get pretty interesting. I think the NHL is, has essentially this summer changed overnight. Kirill Kaprizov is the highest paid player in the league. It's pretty crazy. And I think that, other players are going to follow suit. But I will say, last thing I'll say, Mark, before we wrap up here is, Kirill Kaprizov signing the 8-year deal. I feel like that's something that we're not going to see out of other superstars. Like I just mentioned earlier in the video, you're going to be seeing probably shorter term deals. I'm actually shocked. I don't know how you feel about this, that he signed for 8 years because, he's making a lot right now, but it might actually end up aging pretty well, which is funny. So, I think they're going to end up taking shorter term deals.
And I think the big thing is looking at Kirill, he had a bit of injury issues throughout his career, so maybe this is just to maximize on the 8 years. Be like, hey, I'm going to get $17 million until I'm in my mid-30s to late 30s, so why not take that? But I do agree. I think a lot of these guys, Connor McDavid might take a 2-year deal at 16 per. The next one could be a 2-year deal at 19, all the way up to 20-something. But this is going to continue. Like we see, Makar is not available to go and sign an extension until July 1st of next year. Same as someone like Quinn Hughes. coming out of Vancouver. And these numbers are coming out of players that want to stay with the organization. We know the rumors around Quinn Hughes. So if you're getting into a bidding war, if Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin of the Vancouver Canucks are up against Tom Fitzgerald of the New Jersey Devils, trying to complete the gauntlet of Hughes, as you get into a bidding war, this is going to drive the number up of fans. What is your thoughts on this? What is your thoughts on the contracts? We're getting young players coming in at $9 million. We get Kirill Kaprizov at $17 million. Yes, the numbers will look better year after year, but what is your thoughts on the ever-changing salary cap of the NHL? Let us know down in the comments how much you think McDavid's going to get. Let us know all that down below. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back in another episode, so keep your eye for that. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius, and take care.